Alright, this video is basically meant to be an activity to kind of open up the door to understanding how we can use models to divide fractions, and we're going to learn how to divide fractions by fractions, and I hope that you'll actively participate and eventually score 80% when you do your assigned homework. So our essential question is, how can you divide by a fraction? And a lot of people have some difficulty understanding what that means, and I think that if I put these examples up here, it's probably a good example. I know a lot of people can do these multiplication expressions when they deal with whole numbers, and a lot of people can do these division expressions when dealing with whole numbers. When we get to fractions, they can be a little bit overwhelming. So what I'd like to do just to start is just focus on the ones that we know. So I'm going to take a look, and obviously 8 divided by 2 we know equals 4. And we know that 8 divided by 4 equals 2, and 8 divided by 8 equals 1, and 8 divided by 1 equals 8. So that part is pretty straightforward. And then we look at 8 times 1/8, that's 1/8 of 8, that equals 1. And 8 times 1/2, that's like 1/2 of 8, that will be 4. And obviously 8 times 1 will be 8. And 8 times 2 is 16, and 8 times 4 is 32, and 8 times 8 is 64. And what I'm noticing is that they're the same on both. And so that would probably tell me that 8 divided by 1/2 actually equals 16. And a lot of people have a difficult time with that. Why would 8 divided by 1/2 equal 16? And we'll talk more about that in the second video. But if you could take it as I have 8 candy bars, and I'm cutting them each in half, that would give me 16 pieces. And that's a good way to quickly understand that. But what I can do is fill in the rest of this chart, and I know that I had assigned for you guys to fill it in on your own, so you can use this time to figure out what the correct answer is. Now, let's take this dividing. If I had 8 candy bars and I divided it into 16 equal groups, how big would each group be? It would be 1/2. Each would be 1/2. And so that is also the answer to 8 times 1/16. So again, a little bit hard to wrap your head around a lot of these, but these patterns are going to be really important for having a basic understanding on what it means to divide fractions. So we'll get into that. Let's start with some whole numbers. So if I asked, how many 7s are in 63? The expression I'm really asking is, what is 63 divided by 7? That's what I'm asking. And so I want to see how many 7s are there. And I can see right here, this is a group of 7, right? So that's 1 7 that's in 63. And here's another group of 7 right here. All right, that's 7 that are in 63. And then I got another group of 7 right there in 63. Good drawing there, Mr. G. Then I got another group of 7 right here. And then I guess I can use this marker over here to identify this group of 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I've got this group of 7 here. And one more group of 7 here. And another group of 7 here. Looks like I'm playing Tetris over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then lastly, I've got a final group of 7 right here. And so if I go through and I count how many groups of 7 I have here, I see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 groups of 7. So when it's all said and done, 63 divided by 7 equals 9. And that model kind of tells me that story. And we already know through our basic facts that 63 divided by 7 equals 9. So you're taking the large number 63 and you're breaking it into 7 equal groups, and that's how you get your answer of 9. So I want to ask a very similar question, which is with some fractions, which is, how many 2/3 are in 3? And so that's kind of doing the same thing. It's asking 3 divided by 2/3. So I have 3 red sticks here, if you will, okay, or fraction bars. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break them into 3 equal groups. I'm just going to draw a line to show that they are broken into 3 equal groups. And here we So that's clearly 3 of them are broken into thirds. So if I want to know how many 2/3 there are, I can simply tear it. So there's 2/3, right? And here's 2/3. And then, well, those two together make 2/3. And then here's 2/3. And I got one piece left over. So what that tells me is 3 divided by 2/3 is 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 2/3. With 1 left over, well, that's 1 out of the 2 it would take to make the whole. So my answer here would actually be 4 and a half. And to a lot of people, when they look at that, 3 divided by 2/3 equals 4 and a half, it just doesn't compute. It doesn't seem to make sense because we're not accustomed to using fractions. And so using these models are going to kind of help us to understand this process. And there's a picture on your worksheet that's going to allow you to kind of also visualize that. So it says right here, how many 2/3 are in 3? And you can see that the numbers up here show us the 3 separate pieces, okay, all broken into thirds. And then you can see each of those groups are separated. So those 2 stay together, those 2 stay together, those 2 stay together, those 2 stay together, and then we've got this one little remaining piece here. And so you're going to have that on your screen as well. So the answer, again, we've decided is 4 and 4. There are 4 groups of 2/3, and then of course that remaining piece represents 1/2 of 2/3. So there are 4 and 1/2 groups of 2/3 and 3. So what we've learned is that 3 divided by 2/3 equals 4 and 1/2. So we've just gone over that. Now you're going to go ahead and do that on your own worksheet to demonstrate that you've got that in your notes. All right? Thank you very much for taking a look at this video. Follow the rest of the directions for today.